Alright, before we get into the video, I kind of just want to apologize that this video is probably coming out a little bit later than most of the recap videos usually do. I usually try to get them out around late Sunday morning, early Sunday afternoon, but this one's probably coming out Monday evening or Tuesday afternoon at the very latest, and that's just because, you know, I have a life and I had to do some other stuff not relating to YouTube during the time I usually spend making these videos, since these videos usually take an entire Saturday to make. So, yeah. Sorry about that, and also I've been doing other stuff that actually is relating to YouTube, just not for this channel. Main channel stuff is coming back soon. I know we haven't really been uploading on the main channel that often, but main channel stuff is coming back soon. I have 2 videos that I'm working on right now for the main channel, as well as we'll be streaming Summer Games Fest this Friday. So yeah, tune into that this Friday, Summer Games Fest stream. And yeah, probably from now on, I'm going to try to make sure the recap videos are on a much more coherent schedule. Sundays, probably Mondays at the very latest. But yeah, on with the video.
We are back with the 5th episode of My Hero Academia Season 7. After last week's episode saw Class 1A preparing for the final war, as well as Aizawa bringing back Aoyama to the side of good, this episode sees the final preparations for the decisive conflict, as well as Deku and Aoyama having a mysterious meeting. Before we begin, if you like this video and want to see more like it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps out. My Hero Academia is owned by Kohei Horikoshi, Shueisha, and Studio Bones. Please support the official release when you can. This episode is titled Let You Down and covers from chapters 341 to chapter 343 of the manga. The episode starts off with Himiko Toga visiting her childhood home, which has been covered in graffiti. There's even a few flashbacks showing how her quirk influenced how she views the people she loves, as well as her obsession with blood even as a child. As Toga leaves the house, Toya Todoroki, aka Dabi, is shown to have been nearby, and then for Toga's sake, Dabi burns down Toga's childhood home. Toga pulls out a vial of blood belonging to the deceased twice, remembering that the vial will give her the ability to use twice his powers. Cut to All For One's hideout. Spinner hears Shigaraki screaming in agony and sees an amalgamation of hands sprouting out of him. All For One says that Shigaraki is okay, but is currently overcoming the quirk singularity theory, which is the theory that eventually quirks will become too powerful to even be controlled. Skeptic then says that Spinner must use his position as a voice for the oppressed heteromorphs, that's a hard word to pronounce, heteromorphs to their advantage, and the time for them to destroy is almost here. We then cut to UA's temporary shelter for civilians, which has been infiltrated by a few of All For One's spies. The spies communicate that UA now knows there's little less than a week until Shigaraki is complete, and the spies must fan the flames inside UA to assist All For One. We then see Class 1A coming back to the dorms after joining the search for All For One and Shigaraki. All Might, Tsukauchi, and Nezu arrive and tell Class 1A that it's time to discuss the final plan for the decisive conflict. The next day, UA announces it'll be putting its civilian shelter into the highest level of security, a complete lockdown. Class 1A then say goodbye to their friends and family as they're transported to a fortress known as Troy. A bit later, Deku sees Uraraka looking out at the destruction on a cliff and joins her. Uraraka asks Deku if it's weird that she's been thinking a lot about Himiko Toga and how she wants to save her more than take her down. Deku says that while he knows the final battle is inevitable, he wants to save Tomura Shigaraki as well. Around the same time, Todoroki is talking with Kirishima, Ida, and Bakugo. When asked about his older brother Toya, aka the villain Dabi, Todoroki says that he'll get through to his older brother and one day be able to grab a meal with him as brothers. 3 days later, All For One communicates through code words with Aoyama's parents, who had been released from their cell after last episode. After using a quirk he had stolen long ago to detect that Aoyama's parents aren't lying to him, he finally decides to make his move. Next, we see Deku meeting with Aoyama, who tells the former that he was let out of his cell due to his parents' lawyer. Aoyama tells Deku of the complete chaos Japan has fallen in over the past few months. The Japanese yen has crashed, villains are running rampant, and other nations are losing faith in Japan. Aoyama says that once Japan is completely isolated and its society collapses, one man will rise from the ashes and take control. That man being All For One. Deku replies saying Hero Society won't allow for this to happen, especially because Japan is yet to fall. Aoyama says that this is the end for both of them and apologizes for what's about to happen. That's when All For One appears behind him. Aoyama betrays the heroes once again. Deku immediately prepares to attack All For One, but Aoyama, in the midst of his fear, turns around and fires his laser at All For One. Through the smoke and dust, Deku and Aoyama stand side by side. It's revealed that everything that transpired thus far was all a part of the hero's plan to lure out All For One. Aoyama being released, him meeting with Deku, all of it was a plan to lure All For One out into the open. An annoyed All For One states that even though he fell for their plan, one for all, the power that resides inside Deku, the power he's wanted to steal for generations, is right in front of him. All For One uses his warping quirk to summon his allies. Dabi, Toga, Shigaraki, the Nomus, everyone. All For One, Shigaraki, and their army are ready for their final attack. Suddenly, multiple of Kurogiri's warp gates open up. Through the gates come numerous pro-heroes. Endeavor, Edgeshot, Fat Gum, Miriko, and more, including even Tamaki and Nejire. Aoyama says that what All For One fears the most is Japan uniting together and letting the rest of the world know that they aren't finished, and hope is not lost. That fear is why the heroes will take down All For One today. The final war against All For One finally begins. And that brings us to the end of the episode. The preview for next week's episode shows how the heroes' plan to lure All For One was actually devised and put together, as well as the beginning battles and the final war. Overall, this is definitely the weakest episode in the season so far. The art and animation wasn't all that, especially compared to the last few episodes, although it did pick up more towards the end. The voice acting was pretty alright as well, though like the animation got better towards the end. I guess it doesn't really matter too much since not much happened in this episode until the end anyway. I give this episode a 6 out of 10. But that is the end of my recap/review of this week's episode of My Hero Academia Season 7. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching, and that's all from me.